Hey, what's up, y'all? If y'all feeling all this great content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell so you can get notifications.
You're not tuned into something super tight. Puffin' something sticky, nigga, I roll through the light. Need to hear something real just to get me through the night. I'm looking for them jackets cause I know they looking shy. Know I'ma get some game, tuned in with super tight, yeah. I get the low love from Big Bobo, from the front seat, not no photos.
Already, baby, what it do? It's your big dog, Bobo Luciano. I want to thank everybody again for tuning in to Super Tight TV. We back, up your back, going smack, 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 just like that. Hope it feel good to you too, because it sure feel good to me. I got my sexy ass, gorgeous, beautiful wife.
It's your girl, Jazzy K.
In the building today. Our family member showed back up.
Oh, yes.
Finally.
I'm here. Don't do her.
Finally. What?
Don't
you know, I
do
shoot
her.
shots.
Finally.
I shoot shots. You know what I'm talking about?
She's a very busy woman.
I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I might need to have a private meeting with you two like this when we finish here. Okay? But today is a serious subject that, you know, we wanted to, you know, keep in you guys' face as much as we could. We told y'all we were a platform that was just not about entertainment from the start. We wanted to be about the community. And so mental illness is always a huge part of everybody's community. I can say the black community, but everyone's community. So I don't want to, you know, y'all know I'm always for my people. But this one is going to be across the board because we need to fix what's going on if we can, at least try to. And I like to get it kicked over to my wife and let her get this thing started. But today, what? You ready, buddy? Today, I've got Nurse Fantasia in the house. Hey. Stand up. What's up? What's up?
Can I raise the roof?
Raise the roof up in this mother. The roof.
We showing our age now.
The roof is on fire. Remember that one? Yeah. We don't need no water. Mother cuffer. Mother cuffer.
No, we ain't gonna
make it.
Mother sucker. What's up? What you laughing at? Oh, Fantasia. Do me a favor before we go too far. You know, we're going to start this one off right. Mm-hmm. Could you rub the blue star for us? Because we want this positive energy.
This is new.
No. The practice.
Or did I not get to rub the first time?
You didn't?
I was not invited to rub the blue star the first time.
Oh, well, that's because you're an actual member of the show.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Of the team. But.
So this is like the North Texas? Is this the North? Oh, I'm smart.
No, that's Dallas Cowboy. You ain't got nothing to do with
North
Texas.
Okay.
That's Dallas Fort Worth.
Okay.
You know, so I don't know nothing about Greenville and Sherman and all them places like that. But I love y'all anyway, being up there from the Panhandle.
Okay,
but yeah,
come for you.
They'll come for me in the comments.
Yes, they will.
Yeah, but baby, you want to get it rocked off and get it started?
I do. So, it's April. Yay!
Yeah.
And so while we do like to touch, you know, and educate everybody about mental illness, we also want to educate about other illnesses, right? So, because April is Autism Awareness Month, we're gonna tap on that today. So, we have Fantasia here, and she's gonna answer all of her questions.
I'm gonna do my best.
Yes.
Already.
Yes. So, first, let's just start with what does a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder mean?
So I'm gonna call it ASD because it's just easier for me to articulate it the way it's ASD. And so basically it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. So basically it means that it's usually present, you know, early onset as you're developing.
Okay.
From infancy on into childhood and even last throughout adulthood. And typically what this means is that you'll see certain behaviors, certain characteristics, social characteristics, repetitive behaviors that you'll see.
Like what?
So in terms of like repetitive behaviors, you'll have certain movements that a person with autism may have. Sometimes it's hand flicking, arm movements, or even just jumping or posturing, those types of things that they'll do. But it's repetitive over and over again, and you'll kind of see that it's a pattern.
Okay.
And you'll have kind of unusual interests to where it almost becomes where it's like a compulsion, so to speak. So this is where you get the kiddos who like line up cars and they want to watch the wheels spin on the cars, and so they don't usually play with toys or play with items in the way they're usually intended. They find this other way to kind of play with them. So we would have something like something as simple as like a shoestring. We're gonna take our shoe and tie up our shoe with it. So whereas they may take the shoestring and they may wave it in the air and they're looking at the shoestring. We call that stemming off of certain things. Language, I have to kind of go here because the first things that we see like with autism, because a lot of people would ask, well, what is it that you see? Like when do you start wondering if your child has autism? And a lot of the big things that people see at first is, one is their language doesn't develop. They'll see that they don't communicate the way they should be communicating on par with their other peers, age level.
Yep.
And then we see sometimes where kids will develop language, they'll have language or they'll have these skills, and then they regress. All of a sudden they just kind of regress and kind of move backward. So you'll have these parents to say, my baby was normal. I don't know what happened. They were fine. And then at 2 years old, they just stopped talking, or they started moving backwards instead of forwards. Wow. So you'll see those types of things. Slow to develop, reach milestones and those types of things.
So I heard you mention the about being verbal. So question: if a child is the word diagnosed diagnosed as being nonverbal, will they always be nonverbal?
So that's a good question. So no, so that doesn't necessarily mean they'll always be nonverbal. Some kids with autism develop language, but it's just much later.
Okay.
Sometimes the language itself, there's some abnormalities in the language. So there's kind of restrictive language, like they only have a certain group of words that they're able to say. They're very limited in their way they express. We call that expressive language, the way they're able to express a language. So doesn't mean always. We do see some kids who never develop language. Okay. They're completely silent
for their entire life.
We see that sometimes.
Okay. Okay.
Now, with it being a spectrum disorder, kind of explain that for people who may not understand.
What is the spectrum? What is that?
Yeah.
So the easiest way I can probably describe this is that, and I say all things, even in mental health, period, everything is a spectrum,
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So you have minimally minimal characteristics or signs of certain things, and then you have the extremes of it, right? Yep. And everything in between. Okay. So when you have children who have autism, you can have kids who are what we call higher functioning. I know we're moving away from some of these, some of the other, and so there's certain things that are not acceptable to say anymore. So then those, if I offend anybody, forgive me in advance. But
we dangerous on here.
but you'll have kids who are more severe end of the spectrum, and those are the kids that you see that don't develop language. They cannot live on their own. They won't be able to take care of themselves essentially. And then you have kids who intelligence wise, they have no IQ deficits. They're very intelligent. They can go to school with regular neurotypical kids is what I'll call them. Okay. Able to work and have jobs and those types of things, but they just are a little bit socially awkward.
Yeah.
Now, how so? What's some examples of that social awkwardness? I mean, and I know it's different, it varies, but what are some of the most common?
So the big thing that I notice, like sometimes with people with autism, some of the social cues that we normally pick up off of, just as we're talking, if somebody is telling a joke, I know for the most part that's a joke, and I'm gonna laugh like, okay. Yeah. And even if I don't think it's funny, I know you're telling a joke.
They take it literal.
They take it very literal. And so they're like, what do you mean? They don't really understand what you mean. And so they're not going to laugh, or they're not going to pick up on those cues. And even sometimes it's limited ability to, I call it reading the room, right? Something that may be completely out of the blue. We're maybe talking, like right now we're talking about something, and they say, have you seen the new Disney princess movie? And we're like, but we're not talking about that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Just out the blue. Yeah.
just completely out of the blue.
Has science determined what causes autism? Is it a dietary? People have different. No, I'm just saying dietary. Is it hereditary? Is it something we can do to prevent it? Have they done any research on that?
So they've done.
I know they have.
They have done some research on it, and the best thing I think they know right now, kind of the best we can make out of the evidence we have right now, is it's kind of a combination of both. It's extremely heritable, is what we call it. So there's some genetics involved, and then there's also some environmental, causes as well.
Give me an example.
So, for instance, you'll see, I don't know if you guys remember, like in, is it Detroit, where they had the water?
Flint, Michigan.
Yeah, Flint, Michigan, and things like that. Yes. And they started seeing, lower IQs and those types of things. Yeah, and so you can see it's almost like... and
there's also a town we were talking about in Texas.
Yeah,
that kind of experienced that as well, right?
And I don't even think they've really even taken much time to do any real research in that area. But we do know, like, lead piping, those types of things, can cause autistic-like symptoms. I think that is a combination of both. The best way that I can, from the evidence, I think it's a combination of both. But it's almost the equivalent of, you may have a genetic predisposition to developing obesity or developing diabetes. Yes. But just because it's in your genetics doesn't mean it's necessarily
gonna happen. Right.
Yeah, it's certain things environmental that can occur that will cause those genes to express themselves.
That's weird that you say that, because things like that, like what happened in Flint, I don't know what town y'all are talking about. You might want to speak on that, but I think you might have talked about it to me, but refresh my memory. But when we were children, I can remember. Oh, did y'all hear about the West Dallas situation?
No.
I know you did. With the lead.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think I've heard of it.
I don't know. I think they had a lead, some type of lead plant. No. I think they had some type of plant over there, and it sunk into the earth.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And they had a bunch of everybody. They were getting checks from the government because they all had lead poisoning over there. And there's a number of them. And I wonder if the, autism rate is high over there. Somebody might need to do a study, because that is environmental to the max. I mean, you can't even get away from it. We used to hear about asbestos poisoning. That's environmental.
Well, depending on where it is, you might not hear about it if it was studied. But
there's that.
Well, most of those situations you always hear in low income areas.
Exactly.
That I hear of. Whether it be a white low income area or black low income area, but it tends to happen in those areas. Because you pay for what you weigh. You pay for what you get. You know what I'm talking about?
Which is unfortunate.
Unfortunate. They know situations are going on like that in that area, and they build on top of it. So.
Okay, I have to say that I've noticed in the media, it seems that, even if you watch a movie or, I don't know, in regard to autism, I feel like a lot of the symptoms are like exaggerated to the point that I don't think a lot of people realize that there is such a huge
range.
Yeah, huge range of symptoms and everything. What do you think about that?
I think that, so the first I'm trying to think. The first movie that I saw that had like a character that was kind of central to the plot or thing was Rain Man. I think if y'all remember Rain Man, and that was actually based off of a true a true story.
Yeah.
There was actually a Rain Man, and he was like that. So, and he was probably. Now he's more like a savant is what we call that, where they have kind of these special talents, you know, and so he, that was his case. But you had that, and then you have stuff like, I don't know if people have seen like The Good Doctor. You have The Good Doctor, and he's, smart, right? He's, socially awkward but smart.
I know a lot of those Good Doctors.
Yes. It's a real thing. You'll see people
later.
like, geez, these people have, they're on that spectrum. But
Smart as a whip, though.
But smart as a whip. Smart as a whip. For me, I think that the way it's portrayed in the media is almost like I think we're getting to see the bright and shiny, rainbows and lollipops version of autism.
Yeah.
In the media. I don't think that we pay enough attention to the families and the people who live with autism.
Come on.
How it's devastating for them. It's not, I'm going to med school. It's not, I'm going to be able to, I'm like Temple Grandin. Temple Grandin is another, person who has autism who literally, she revolutionized the way that they have, that they slaughter cows, right? She was able to go in and like look from the perspective of the cow, of the slaughterhouse and how not to spook the cows and those types. It was like more humane.
Oh, wow.
But we get to see that aspect of autism, but I don't think we do enough to see the parents and the kids who struggle on a day-to-day basis to function.
Yes.
And that's the majority of, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost, I hate to bring this up, we were talking about this too, but that, as dealing with that as a parent and family, kind of mirrors what we have to deal with Alzheimer's as an adult. You know what I mean? That is, I don't know if that's comparable, in some people's eyes, but that is, I was just telling her, we saw someone posted something the other day. That's what they call it, the long goodbye. That's a tough one. We deal with both in our family, and it's tough to deal with it. And I watch the immediate family members. Well, we are the immediate family members dealing with the Alzheimer's, but the autism. Yes, I can just see it taking a toll on the parents and those around closely around them.
So, what are some of the benefits of early intervention? Because you hear that a lot when it comes to autism spectrum disorder. Early intervention, what are some of the,
So, in a nutshell, for early intervention, that's one of the things that we say sometimes it can make or break your situation, depending on, because the earlier you identify autism, it's almost like any disease or illness. The goal is to intervene early. You don't want to wait till you have end-stage cancer. Right. You don't want to wait till you have end-stage kidney disease. Right. Okay. You don't want to wait till you have diabetes such that your feet. So the earlier you intervene, the better your outcomes. Okay. Now it doesn't mean that you won't have autism, right? There's a small amount of kids that may fall off the spectrum.
Really?
If you intervene early and those types of things, sometimes they do fall off the spectrum. That's fewer. I think maybe like it was like 10% or something, but it's possible.
10%'s big.
Especially if you're one of the 10%, right? That's the goal, right? You want, even if it's 1%, 2%, is to get that person functional and be able to be a productive member of society, because it costs society a whole bunch of money. And that, for me, I look at it and I go, well, how can we sustain all of these new diagnoses and not doing anything about it? So when we're, in particular for us in our community, because let me just say this, I think the CDC just released some new numbers here. So 1 in 36, that's the rate right now. That's the prevalence. 1 in 36, okay, kids, have autism. Okay,
wow.
Those kids turn into adults. Yeah. Right? And all of our services right now are front loaded however good or bad you think of, they're all front loaded
For the children.
for children. But these folks turn into adults.
Yes,
Right,
and they're
then
out
what?
of society.
Exactly. And how does that affect us as a community, right? Well, this is what we know, is that most of the time we are the last to get a diagnosis,
Yes.
which means we're the last to get early intervention, which means our kids are probably going to have poorer outcomes.
Wow.
So that's how it directly affects us.
What resources are there really for adults who haven't gotten early intervention?
Not
Like
much,
what,
huh?
what do they?
No.
The way you shaking your head is not
No,
much.
there's not much. There's not much. After these children age out of the school system,
Yes.
who knows? I mean, I wish I could tell you what we do with these individuals. Many times they go to what we call group homes, and they have like residential facilities that they live in, and things like that. But those are few and far between, right? There's, so I couldn't tell you. There's just not a lot out there. The ones that are higher functioning, these individuals who are higher functioning, and who can work and those types of things, you'll see, that they still are heavily dependent on many times on their family members for support and things like that. But honestly, there's not a lot out there.
Wow.
It's sad.
Now, what was the show you and I were watching about?
We watch a lot of shows.
I know, but the one about the dating in the
Oh,
autism.
Love on the Spectrum.
Love on the Spectrum. Yes, I do suggest that everybody go and watch that. What was it on?
I think we saw it on Netflix, maybe.
Yeah,
It was on Netflix.
I do advise everybody check out that show because it does give you, a better intimate look at what life is every day for adults on the spectrum. It's interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. So, you have any questions?
No, I'm learning.
No. So, what are some of the if a parent has a child who's newly diagnosed with autism? What are some of the therapies and interventions they can expect to experience?
So typically, early intervention right now, probably the most studied is ABA. ABA is basically behavioral analysis, and they use certain techniques and things like that and strategies to help with behaviors. Speech for children who have a speech deficit or speech impairment. And some kids, they need OT, occupational therapy, things like that. What I'll say is that like autism just kind of very rarely kind of exists in and of itself. There's almost always something else associated
about
with.
to
You have
ask
like
that,
people who have, health conditions like epilepsy, seizure disorder, those types of things, gastrointestinal, issues, the disturbances, food sensitivities, those types of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot.
Yes. That's why.
So that's going to be it should be very tailored and one-on-one to the individual. So it can vary based on their symptoms individually. Got you.
It's crazy. I see nowadays some of these kids, because of this device, the cell phone, they are socially awkward. I mean, video gamers, cell phoners. I mean, they just, you try to talk to them about common sense things, and it's like not. My baby used to always say, "Common sense ain't so common." You know what I mean? And when I say it's almost like autism, when I talk to these people, because they are socially awkward, it's like our minds are not exercising enough. Their minds are not exercising enough. I just, we're dumbing down as a country, as a nation.
You're bringing a good point.
Okay.
This is where it gets really tough because, as a clinician, it's one thing, like I don't want to be that person to tell people how to think. I'm just telling you to think.
We need
And
to be
there's a
critical.
difference.
We need to be critical thinkers.
That's it. And I
Yes.
think that's the part that's lacking. It's like sometimes we get so caught up in our feelings about what somebody's saying, like, maybe this is not the best choice. We're so focused on, but it's my choice and I can do what I want to do and da-da-da-da. But it's almost like we can't listen to reason.
Yes.
We know this stuff is not healthy.
It didn't used to be like that, though.
It didn't used to be, but
It's almost
this
like in the
is-
last 20 years, it's like we are dumbing down.
But you also see that in the last 20 years, while we're saying we're dumbing down, we're also becoming more we're becoming less resilient.
Yep.
We're becoming
That's what I
more
mean.
sensitive.
Well,
We're becoming
Yes.
Thinner skin.
Yeah,
Yes.
and we have more mental health. And people, they can argue. You'll probably have people in the comments and but you can argue me down. That's fine. We can have the conversation. What I'm saying is that prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Talk about it. Get in the comments. Talk about it.
prove me wrong.
Yeah. Give us your experience. I mean, let us know. Like I say, prove us wrong. I mean, because I've noticed it as well. It's
And I think we, in particular with autism, like we have this now where everybody is like, well, now I have autism. It's we go through these periodic things where people will hear this new diagnosis and will go, well, now I have autism,
Right.
as not to say an excuse, but it's almost like you're looking for a reason
A crutch.
for to do things that you,
yeah. Well, it's mental illness. Period. That I must be. Stressed.
Well, I
must-
kind of think that's the society we're in as well, where it's like almost around the time where everybody gets a ribbon started. It's like, well, we want to validate everybody's feelings, and we want to validate all emotions, and sometimes that's just not feasible. Yeah, because it weakens. I mean,
it weakens
you know what I mean?
us. Yes, it makes
You
us
have to
weaken
be able
society.
to constructively accept criticism.
How do you make yourself better if you're getting rewarded for mediocrity?
You don't. You don't. And in particular with autism, and I think I had sent Kyra a video of a young lady that was saying she had autism. She's like, oh, I have autism, and I'm looking at the person. It's hard for me because I'm a clinician and I'm looking and I'm just trained to look. And I'm going, okay, perhaps you're one of those people who fell off the spectrum. Okay, maybe you fell off the spectrum. I can give you that.
Yeah.
But what it really does is that whenever people start kind of taking on and wearing these different hats that you probably don't have, it's very likely that you don't have. I believe that it's almost like you're taking away resources and discrediting the people who actually are struggling with
I
this
believe that.
disorder.
I
So
believe that too.
maybe
That's
you
a good
do
point.
have
That's a good
a
point.
touch of autism. I think we all probably may have. I mean, at any point, if you
Everybody got something.
everybody has something, but it doesn't mean you have a clinical disorder. Maybe if I took some cards and I lined them up here on the
Texas
table here.
table.
But every part of my life, besides me lining up these cards, are inconsistent with autism. Guess
Right.
what? I don't have autism.
Okay,
I just lined up some cards, and that's it.
Anybody can do that.
At any given time.
And with mental health, you have it overlaps so much. I couldn't even tell you. That's why number one, you need to get with a trained clinician
Yes.
that's going to tell you the truth. Do not self-diagnose.
Now, share for the people what a trained clinician is, because I think a lot of people outside of the healthcare realm feels like a doctor is a doctor, and anybody that says, you know what I mean, but the importance of going to specialists in their area.
So, on the primary care level, primary care clinicians are essentially trained, and I have immense respect for. So let me just say that for primary
Not
care
you, but
clinicians,
me.
because they have to know a little bit about everything. Okay, and so essentially they're just kind of monitoring to see if there's something that could be going on. But even at that level, it's hard to differentiate whether you have anxiety, whether you have depression, whether you have bipolar disorder, whether you have a personality disorder. All that stuff has to really go through a licensed, psychiatrist or a psychologist or a psychiatric nurse practitioner or a PA who's been trained in.
Psychiatric nurse practitioners are my.
Yeah, crazy.
That's her jam. A licensed clinical social worker, they can diagnose, but you want to make sure you get with somebody who actually has experience in diagnosing and ruling things out, because I can't tell you how important that is. To get a good diagnosis. You got to know what you're treating.
Yes.
Number one, like any clinician will tell you, if I don't know what I'm treating, I'm already on the wrong track.
That part. Well,
that's wise.
and I did say that for a reason. I do have great respect for psychiatric nurse practitioners, not just because I'm a nurse, but because I know that nurses are trained in the holistic care of a person. They're not trained to just treat symptoms.
Holistic? Gotta
Yeah.
be careful of that.
What do you mean?
Ain't that don't they have that stuff like
Honey, I need you to look up. No, that's not
chakras and
what
all that?
no, we're
Okay.
talking about the whole person.
Okay.
That's what I mean by the term holistic.
But then there's
The
another
whole person, okay? They're trained, the spiritual, they're trained to take everything into consideration. So yeah. Find you a good psychiatric nurse practitioner.
Yeah, man. So you got any more questions, my sweet wife of yours?
I don't. I think we had a great conversation.
I'm
You have
ready.
anything you want to add?
I just say this. I would say the one thing I think that affects our community when it comes to particular mental health is labels. And sometimes we get afraid about labeling our children or mislabeling our children at an early age. And a lot of times that's what keeps us from seeking help.
Yes.
But let me just say this. In particular, when it comes to autism, because your intervention must be early, I find a lot of parents will say, well, I went to the pediatrician and they just said, let's wait and see. This is not a let's wait and see.
Yes.
This is not a time where we watchful waiting, as we call it in the medical field, is appropriate. If your child, and as a parent, you know your child better than anybody else. And typically we know something's wrong. Okay. But don't let that label deter you from seeking help for your child, because you actually increase their chances of better outcomes by getting help early.
Amen.
That's real.
I just have to say that without the diagnosis, there's no services for your baby. Insurance is not going to pay if you have insurance. There's no services without it. The school district's not going to give you anything.
That's true.
Yeah.
You're going to have to fight for your child. Without that diagnosis, there's no fight. There's nothing.
You have to advocate for your
You've
child.
got to advocate for your children. So
Come on, people.
there's ECI in Texas is ECI, early childhood intervention, and so you can contact early childhood intervention and they can do assessments and kind of see if the child needs speech and those types of things. The other thing is at 3 years old, you can go to your local school district if you have concerns about your child, and they have something called Child Find where they can do some intervention
That's
early
good to
for
know.
your child.
That's great to know.
Yeah. Which, hey, again, like I said, this is another wonderful session.
Absolutely.
It's not an interview, just conversation. And anytime you come, you are real informative,
Thank you.
Yes.
real educational, because we need it. You know what I'm saying? I need it, and I know people, a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of people being affected.
It's a lot of people. And let me just say this too about the 1 in 36, the new rate. This is the first time that I know of, and somebody can probably get in comments and correct me wrong, but this is the first time that Black people and even brown folks, we are diagnosed more now than that of white people. It used to be that white people were kind of overrepresented as far as diagnosing,
That's because they had insurance.
it's access. It's access
Yes.
to services and things like that. So that old thing, we're like, oh, that doesn't happen in our community, or no, that's not us, or
Yeah.
whatever. No, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
It absolutely occurs.
Yes.
The fact is that we just don't get the early diagnosis, the early intervention, and those types of things. So I want people to walk away from this conversation knowing that this is not a white, middle class, upper class thing. This is very
everybody.
prevalent in our community
Everybody.
as well. Yep.
It affects everybody.
Lovely. 1 in 36 is a lot.
And
Yeah.
if you don't take anything from this session, I keep on calling the interview, this conversation, I mean, get that early intervention. I mean, we have to. I mean, get out of all the conspiracy theories.
Get out
all
of the
that.
stigmas. Get out of you don't know how much in healthcare, like we hear, I hear people from my community, all these doctors, they just want to kill you. They just want to be putting you on medication. And
yes.
I promise you, you know what I mean? That's not the case.
That's
like,
not the case at all.
which we have good reason to feel that way,
100%.
because of history. But that's why representation matters.
Yes.
And,
Get you a good doctor.
yeah,
I mean, get one that's been recommended. You know, to take a couple recommendations from people. You know, referrals, should I say?
Yes, and get from behind these labels. That's
Yes.
very important.
Yeah, smarten up.
Yeah.
Hey, I got Nurse Fantasia in the house. You know what I'm talking about? Once again, a beautiful conversation, one that's well needed and well deserved for our community and for our family members. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe to the channel.
And share this interview.
Yes, please.
Share this interview with
Comment.
other people that may need this information.
Yes, comment. Let us know what you feel, what you're thinking, what you disagree with. Like I say, prove us wrong. We want to be a beacon of light. We want to be a beacon of information. You know, we just want to be in our lane and do our part. Again, I got Nurse Fantasia in the house, a real super tight family member.
Know I'ma get some game tuned in with super tight, yeah. I get it all up from Big Bobo, from the front seat, not no photos.